St. John of the Ladder wrote, and I quote here, "Just as a pauper, seeing the royal treasures, all the more acknowledges his own poverty, so also the Spirit, reading the great deeds of the Holy Fathers, involuntarily is all the more humbled in its way of thought." The emphasis here is that we should approach anything spiritual, readings of the Fathers, lives of saints, including contemporary saints, of course, I would say with humility, but let's say in a humble way, because humility is a special gift from God and we don't have it unless it's given. So, but we can learn to be humble. That's a different thing altogether. And so when we approach anything that is spiritual, we have to approach it in a humble way. St. Nikodemos says that when we're reading the lives of the saints or the lives of the writings of the Fathers, we mustn't be too enthusiastical. We have to read it with calm and with I would say with humility. I can't not say the word humility. We have to be humble in our approach, and this also applies to our life. Everything that we do, we have to be humble. We keep in our minds this idea of being humble so that we at least grow in awareness. And the Fathers talk about humble and quiet labours. What are quiet labours? Well, that's our prayer life. Prayer that is simple. Jesus' prayer is the prayer that we should be practicing. And when we practice the prayer, we're not practicing in order to receive some gift or feelings or exhortation. If we do, that there's something wrong. No, we just have his eyes down and just do it. Well, if we've come to orthodoxy from another faith, of course, we're very enthusiastic. That is one of our problems. We want to know everything, we want to do everything. It has to be superb, has to be absolutely correct. And this is actually a false pride. We have to let things happen. When somebody comes to church and says, "Well, I'm thinking of becoming Orthodox, what should I do next?" I said, attend services and pray. Pray how you know how to pray. God will show you. It's God that will bring you to Orthodoxy. He will teach you, not me. Maybe I can give you some ideas, some pointers, but it's God that we have to give the credit to, because he does these things for us. Humble and quiet labours. Now, in traditional Orthodox spirituality, there is what they call memory of mind, which is the intellect, and then there is memory of soul, which is to do with the spirit. The memory of the mind is to do with secular knowledge. Through secular knowledge, we learn things. This is how we learn. We study at school, we study at college, whatever we do, we're studying. This is secular knowledge, which is a part of the mind. It is a memory of the mind. It goes into our memory, it enters into us. We become a part of what we study. But with the memory of the soul, it is incorruptible and produces an untaught knowledge. I'd like to emphasize that, untaught knowledge. So it's not the same knowledge that we get from books or from people or from life on an intellectual level. It is untaught knowledge which comes from the Holy Spirit. This is a different form of knowledge. And it says this is untaught knowledge in the depths of the purified soul. Secular knowledge is rational, limited, and determined by philosophical categories of human thought. Spiritual knowledge grows through purity of heart, love for God, and love for people. That is spiritual knowledge. Now, in these times at the moment, which are very difficult, whatever's going on outside, we can't change it, but we can live in the spiritual world. And this is very important, because if we don't live by the memory of the soul, we'll end up depending on memory of mind, on the intellect. So how am I going to survive? Shall I go to Costco and buy food for the future? The answer is no. How do I do this? Make provisions, stock up on things, firewood maybe. No. Nothing wrong with firewood, of course, but it's to do with the idea of stocking up. I will you know, be prepared. I build bigger barns. Pull down my barns and I will build bigger. So when the time comes of persecution, I will be ready. Yes, you'll have a lot of property for them to confiscate. Believe you me, we are going to need to live by memory of Saul. This is going to be important. And I want to emphasize that. Well, I'm emphasizing, sorry, this is what the fathers are saying. St.Nikodemos of the Holy Mountain, which I want to talk about tonight, it is said, if he had acquired knowledge only through the mind, he would not have been able to pass on the wisdom that he passes on in his book. The book is called Handbook of Spiritual Counsels. It's not easy to read. It's not easy to read on an intellectual level, I don't think. But on the spiritual level, it's almost impossible, except that it isn't, if we approach it with humility, saying, I don't know what this is about, but I'm going to read it to see what God will give me from it. How St. Nikodemos will guide me. Eyes down, you know, it's like the publican. We don't look up our eyes to heaven, stare at the sky, we keep our head down. And we trust in God, and we approach everything with simplicity. And this is a curse of this age, is that we do not have simplicity. Everything is so complex. I mean, if you follow anything at the moment about elections, you know what I mean. But Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, is very simple, extremely simple. And it is a cure for, well, our souls, and also a defense against what is going to happen or what is happening. It says that Nicodemus had not purity of heart. He would not be able to pass on spiritual things. St. Gregory Palamas, and here's a quote, the body, and this is important, the body participates in the spiritual delights of the future life. Spiritual delights of the future life. Our physical senses become enhanced, transfigured. The body itself becomes spiritual. We have examples of this in the Old Testament. For example, Moses prayed on Mount Sinai for 40 days. He didn't eat, and he didn't sleep. Who could do that? 40 days without any sustenance? Yet he did that on Mount Sinai. Elijah also. These are examples from the Old Testament. And there are many others that I can't mention at the moment, I can't remember. But our physical senses, through memory of the soul, become enhanced, transfigured. The body itself becomes spiritual. St. John Chrysostom, he spent 3 months without food and drink. Impossible by medical standards, modern standards. If you live in the mind, this is obviously unreasonable, it's scandalous. What are we saying? But in the spiritual sense, it's true, and this is what happened. And we're going to be worried about food. We don't need food. I'm not saying that now you stop eating. I'm not passing any recommendations, of course, but I'm saying we need to be aware of it. St. Gabriel here in the icon, he says that you could live on one leaf. One leaf will support you for a month. Take no thought what you're going to wear or what you're going to eat. It's in the gospel. But that's very hard for us with the pressure, especially when we have families and we have children. We are thinking about that all the time, how to provide for them. We have other examples, St. Simeon the Stylite, St. Paisius and Porphyrius, our contemporary saints. They participated in spiritual delights. From what I can understand from reading their lives and what they have said is that when you live in the spiritual life, you receive spiritual delights of the future life. You begin to experience them now. And I think it was St. Isaac, yes, St. Isaac said that if you do not experience some spiritual delights, you are dead. If you do not have a spiritual experience, you cannot experience these things, then you are actually dead. You're dead already, spiritually. Let's think about this. Are we spiritually alive? I think we are when we receive communion. And sometimes we can feel the effect of grace, but we usually chase it off. This is affected by going back into the mind and trying to rationalize things. I mean, you can't help it because this is how we've been brought up. But we've got to learn to not depend on it and to trust in God more and to pray and to be humble and quiet. Humble and quiet. Through holiness, and I have a quote here, the law of gravity loses its authority. When somebody becomes holy, don't have to obey Newton's laws of gravity. And an example of that is St.Nikodemos of Evia, serving the liturgy. The children actually saw him levitating. He was several feet off the ground in front of the holy table. He was beyond, because of the gift. It's not something that you can't acquire it. We can't say, right, I'm going to go off and pray and then I'm going to become invisible, because St. Paisius was invisible at times. We're not doing it for that. It's not a game. It's not magic. But this is a potential that we can experience here on earth, not waiting until some future life. Through holiness, the law of gravity loses its authority. Through holiness, the transfigured body, through prayer, communion, confession, overcomes the limits of created existence and the laws of time and space. Well, we know that from St. John of Kronstadt, serving the liturgy in Kronstadt and yet being in the Far East with somebody's bedside. It wasn't a phantom, he was in both places at once. And eventually he said to the man who was sick, I have to go now because I'm serving the liturgy. So I can't sort of hang around with you, and talk. That's one example. And of course, we know about St. Porphyrius. He enjoyed the spiritual delights when he could see the past, not only the present and future and foretell things, but he could see the past. You know, the story was him driving with somebody to see the new church, and he's sitting there and they say, Father, look, what do you think? And he's looking out the wrong window. And he said, no, Father, he's on the right. No, what are you looking out that way for? He says, there's a beautiful church there. But there wasn't anything there. But there had been maybe 200 or 300 years before. We don't understand. These are mysteries. But there are foretastes of spiritual delight, of clairvoyance. I mean, you're not seeking these things. These are the offshoot of prayer and humility. But the moment we start rationalizing it or desiring it, which is even worse, I think, then we won't have it. We will lose it. The transfigured body overcomes the limits of created existence and laws of time and space. St. Paisius, talking to the French pilgrims in French when he doesn't speak the language, but he was speaking it. What's that about? And afterwards, they see another monk as they're leaving. They said, wonderful, wonderful talk from the elder. What? Yes, we were listening to you. So you couldn't have done it. He's in Egypt. Beyond existence. And there we're worried about the world collapsing around us, which we should be concerned, not worried, concerned. Yes, we should be concerned, but it is not what we're here for. St. Gabriel said, if you don't develop a spiritual life, and exactly what I'm talking about tonight, you will not be able to resist Antichrist. Because you'll go into your brain, into your mind, and you'll try and rationalize it. And you'll be lost. Even the faithful could be lost. I'm sorry, I'm misquoting here, but basically we must not trust our thoughts. If you're in a situation that is very, very difficult, you go and pray. Like tonight we sang the Akathist to the Mother Theotokos, to the Mother of God, mainly for those who are sick, have caught this COVID plague. We're not exempt from sickness. We're not exempt. And if we die through it, then that's the way God has chosen it. We must accept that. But we're not in fear because we don't belong here. How did we get here? Why, we're born in a certain age. Many of my contemporaries who have passed on are not here to witness what we're suffering. We are suffering. We're born at a certain time because there's a reason. God created you because you have a purpose. And you have to think about that. As St. Anthony the Great says, if you don't know yourself, you cannot know God. That was also repeated by St. Athonite the Great, quoting St. Anthony. If you do not know yourself, you cannot know God. So how do we get to know ourselves? Through prayer. Eyes down. Don't look about. Just pray and try and keep everything simple. And then you'll see who you are. You see, a lot of problem is that we always think about certain sins. And as a confessor, I hear this often, that things are repeated. Well, I can't give this up, keep doing this. Well, yes, okay, but God accepts you. I mean, that's a mystery of his mercy. But the important thing is not these sins that are repetitive, but the cause. Why do you sin? What's the cause? It's a passion. What's the passion? Gluttony? Usually is, by the way. It leads to all the others. And gluttony doesn't mean just eating too much. It means living for food, dreaming of beautiful dishes. Who doesn't do that? We all do. We're now in the fast. Thank God we're in the fast, otherwise we would make ourselves ill, I think, of what we eat. But God has given us the fast so that we can sort of calm down, be quiet, and labour with humility. You know?